right, let's do it. Episode 7 of Idiot Savants with your hosts, Nate Fontes and I, Bernie Sanders Jr. Tonight, we have a very special guest. Growing up, I knew him as Dario, but I think most of you know him as Yons. Welcome.
Yons.
So let's welcome the veritable legend, Yons D Jackson.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
What's up?
What's up? Yes. Man, what can we say about you? You're a quintessential producer, a rapper, a wordsmith, a thinker. But a lot's changed, man, since we brushed shoulders way back. I mean, first of all, your moniker has changed. You were Yons D for the longest time, and then all of a sudden, you kind of like disappeared, according to my perception of things on social media. I mean, but why the change, man?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it was. I don't know how many years I was Yons D. That was the thing, and I just dropped it. Pretty much, I dropped the D because people were calling me Yons anyways. It's like
Okay.
because Eons sounds like Yons. A lot of people don't make that connection. So
Right.
they're like, man, where's the Yons come from, man? Like, it's the ghetto way to say Eons, man.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And
I didn't know.
I just dropped the D because the
Okay.
D just sounds more like Eons D sounds more like a classic hip hop artist, and I'm just trying to appeal to the current sensibilities
Right,
in
right.
music. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
so that's where Yons came from, man.
Gotcha. I didn't know if you had like a rebirth or something. I'm just gonna throw the old me away, just jump in.
Like Diddy to P Diddy to like a. Nah, I just kind of deleted my old social media stuff and was like, I'm gonna start over, kind of as an artist and kind of get rid of a lot of the baggage from Yons D, because I had a lot of transitions with Yons D. I went from doing like straight Christian hip hop to doing positive hip hop conscious stuff until like to now it's just like I'm still like, if you hear a lot of my new music, it's still a lot it's not a lot of similarities, but it's definitely more of a way to kind of clean the slate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my questions I was going to ask. Like why the shift from Christian to secular? See, I'm holding up my fingers, but I was just curious why you did it. I mean, like I kind of get it, but I want to hear you.
Man, can you say that question again?
Oh, I said that was one of my questions I was going to ask. Why the shift from like a Christian artist to secular, if that's what you want to call it. Oh crap!
Oh, why the switch from like Christian and secular?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's. I would say, man, for as far as music, because I think it's two different questions when you talk about music versus like why the switch from being a Christian to being whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think those are two different things.
I totally agree.
For me, it was more like mainly because I didn't know where I was with my faith, whereas earlier on I was more, I was definitely more Christian as far as my own personal life and faith, and then as I got, as I progressed or whatever in life, I kind of got more into like, I don't know, let me figure this out type stuff. So it's like my music, I needed my music to kind of reflect that, and so I was like, it ain't. I should stop, pursuing this Christian hip hop thing if it's not really reflective of where I am. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and honestly, before I was even. No, I'm saying before I was even outside of Christianity, I was still progressing more towards less Christian, and a lot of artists were less Christian music. I think y'all were doing that,
Yeah.
And so y'all were way ahead of the game in that sense, because I'm thinking the first time I met y'all is that y'all were being Christians, just making music. It wasn't Christian music.
Yeah.
Y'all were just Christians making music. So that was like, I don't know how long, like maybe 5 or so years before, I kind of made the switch. So it was just me kind of naturally sort of progressing as an artist, and as far as what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the creative medium has to be primary. It has to be you can't fake what you are, and like that's what we battled with like for years. We're like that's why we had so many like members break off because they wanted to adhere to that structure of religion, and we were like we're tired of looking like idiots on stages, like trying to talk about stuff we don't want to talk. We just want to rock, man. We just want to like act a fool.
Just want to do music.
Yeah, I remember we would have like long discussions about like, are we gonna like, is it gonna be a prayer group or is it gonna be a show? And it would just be, a couple of us really just wanting to perform and entertain, and then a couple of us wanting to turn it into like, a prayer night or whatever. And
yeah.
It was just, I think though, like to go back to you changing your name, like we had a very similar rock and roll. Like our first name was Cataract, and then people were like, so like the eye disease or whatever, like you guys have cataracts in your eye, and then ultimately it was part of the Nile River or whatever, so we added Falls. But it's funny how names, I think names are so important when you think about like Yons. I think is such a great name, and I thought Eons was a great name too, and Yons D, but I think Yons is a great name. But yeah, it's weird how that transition to like we saw all the bands around us doing it. All our favorite bands growing up were like, you would go to their shows and they may say one or two things about their beliefs, but ultimately you weren't going to church. You were just going to a show.
Yeah, man, and I think it's good to leave that sort of thing in church, because when you talk about music and stuff, it's just like there's so many pitfalls you can get into when you mix art with like religion, and so many like conflicts of interest and things like that. You talk about business and music, and you're trying to, it's just like so many people buy into that, and it's like they're buying music to like support a ministry. So then you have people who are just kind of using the art form of music to push an agenda, or even vice versa. They're trying to push their own musical career, and they're using a religion in that sense to do that. And so it's just it's kind of murky, man.
It is very, and I agree 100%. I mean, but anyways, like back to the beginning, like when I found your new stuff, like your new name, under your new name, I've been listening to your stuff for like 3 weeks now, like on your SoundCloud at work and stuff. So yeah, your new efforts, man, are stellar. I will say, you released a new track recently called Campaign, which is dope. But the song I've been jamming like over and over and over is the Civil Rights song. That song just
really,
yeah. Oh, dude, that song's so good. Like I love that your style is.
That's good to hear, man.
Oh yeah, it's more than like a novelty act. It's not your standard fare. I just love how you infuse this jazzy nature to your hip hop. Basically, your shit's dope, is what I want to say.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. No, man, I really appreciate that, man. I'm definitely trying to go more in like a jazzy route, and that song for me was just like a way to sort of get that out, because I was working on an entire album like about social justice and all that, and I was like, man, that's been done. Kendrick has done it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna put it all in one song, and then I'm gonna move on and just do some fun shit. And so that's kind of what that song was, man. So I'm glad that it was really like a very personal song, man. So I'm really glad that people are really feeling it, man, like that. So
yeah. Well, yeah, I was listening to it, like how I listen to music is I listen to music first and lyrics come later. So like I'm just jamming to it for like the first week, and then I start like listening to lyrics the next week, and I'm just like, wow, this is dealing with some heavy themes, like more than I thought. I realize the song's called Civil Rights, but like I said, I'm just letting the music go in first, and I'm like listening to the stuff you do. Like, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah, man, that's cool, because I wanted it to be like, and I'm glad that people like the lyrics, because I did want it to be like this. It's like the artwork. I feel like what I wanted to do with the artwork is kind of show the juxtaposition. Like, I didn't want people to immediately see the title and be like, oh, here it is, a song about civil rights. Is it really that obvious?
Right,
so
right.
I figured that by making it that obvious, people would know it's not that obvious
Right.
about a certain thing. So that's really cool. Because in Christian rap, that was the thing too. It's just like you had to be so. Even with positive rap, everything was just like straightforward, and that's boring as art. You know, it's just like it's not really anything you can learn from. So, so yeah, man, that's cool, and that's what you said earlier too about making music that you don't have to hear the words. And as a rapper, I think one thing I can say for me, and that's one of the reasons why I started to really transition, because I was really heavy on words as Yons D and stuff like that. But now it's like I'm trying to move more into like I got some stuff I'm working on an album that's doesn't even have any lyrics on it. It's just music, and nice. I'm just trying to get more into feel. Man, I realize feel is so important, and I think that's a lot of things people miss, especially with religious music, is the feel. Particularly when it comes to like hip hop or whatever. Dudes that do Christian rap, it's just like a lot of music is about feel. Like people are singing about you have a guy like I don't know, 2 Chainz or whoever, and they're rapping about selling drugs and stuff. A lot of people don't listen to that because they want to support selling drugs and murdering people. It's just a feel that they get from saying these things. And so, so I think it took me a while to understand that, coming from where I'm from, and with the influences that we had in church and stuff, to realize. I think it was a Christian theologian, I forget his name now, that wrote a book. I think it was Francis Schaeffer, about art. Okay. He wrote a lot of books about art, but he helped me sort of like. And it's funny because it's ironic because he's a Christian dude, but he sort of helped me get a better understanding of art and the history of art, and how pretty much religion has the way religion looks at art now. A lot of mainstream Christianity has only been in effect essentially the past less than 100 years. Before that, it was like no difference between secular art and
I heard that.
Christian art. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's really interesting, man. But yeah, a lot of that had an effect on me changing, so to speak. Or I hate to say changing, but
we've all changed. We've all changed.
I think one of the questions I had, because not to sound redundant to what Bernie's been saying, but like your music is awesome. Like it's so good, and I just I'm sure that's not why you got on here to get your head exploded, but like it sounds so good. And then so I guess a lot of our questions are just based around your process, because as Bernie is a current musician. I haven't done a whole lot recently, but I'm interested in the process. I'm interested in Bernie and I, we look back and we think about, okay, well, did we accomplish all the things we wanted to do? Were we successful? And you gauge those things differently. But I look at hip hop and I see, there's so many hip hop artists. Not all of them are great. And a lot of them that aren't great are super, how do you gauge your success? I guess is my question. You're so good. Man. And it seems to me that it's a tragedy that it's not mainstream,
right?
Man, that's a good question, man, and I appreciate that y'all really like the music like that, man. It really is an honor. And just to throw this in there, man, I feel like it's crazy, man, because I remember, man, when y'all came down and we went to Orlando, man, and we went to to watch y'all play, man, and it really had an effect on us, man. Y'all don't even know. It really did. It showed us another side of things, because we were kind of sheltered, church boys, man, at that time, and y'all kind of shows man, y'all could really get out here and do some music for real. And so I mean, it really y'all's boldness when it came to for the sake of art, man, I never seen before that people really chase their music dream, like that, and performing in bars, and these were guys who grew up as Christian, and so it really did, man. That weekend alone, man, gave me a lot of boldness. So
wow.
So y'all are definitely an influence, man. And as far as process goes, man,
thank you.
Yeah, man, for real. Yeah, my process,
it's all accidental.
What you say? It's all what? What was that? You said it's all what?
I said it was all accidental. If there was any influence that you received, it was.
Yeah, man, y'all the man. We really thought y'all was cool, man. Especially Nick, man. Nick looked. I think Nick, y'all had him dyeing his hair, man, one time, man.
We did, man. He even played drums for us, man. At one point, at the very end, he helped us out. He jumped in and like he even recorded a song with us and everything. Like it was the last song we ever recorded technically as a band. He was on it. Which I miss that guy as a side note. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but because he became like a brother to me. Like so we were always together, and then once we
we definitely have to talk and get up, man. A lot has changed and stuff, but he's still the same Nick, man.
Yeah,
he's still the same guy, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's still doing drums.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Him on here.
But I guess back to the question. What was the question, Nate? Like you were asking.
Yeah, it seems like. I think the music industry, not just hip hop, it seems so hard. It seems so tough. Like, to me, if we would have done a couple things differently back when we were starting, like we could have had a shot, and we made a couple mistakes along the way. But like, your music is so good, and we can put it up next to so many different artists that are currently like headlining shows and winning Grammys or whatever, and like I just am so confused. Like that's I guess my question is like how does it work anymore? I don't even know how it works.
right. No, man, it's that's real, man. It's real. Honestly, I learned the location has a lot to do with it, man. Situation as well. A lot of my things. I figured a lot of this late in the game. If I was 5 or 6 years younger, it'd have been a lot easier, I wouldn't have as many responsibilities and things like that. I work. I'm kind of doing accounting work and stuff now at GE, and I have a wife and kid, so it's just tough, man. I can't hit the road like I really want to. And being in Louisville, Kentucky, there's a hip hop scene here, but it hasn't exploded like a lot of other cities. If I was in Atlanta or back home in Florida, even though we don't have a huge scene in Florida, I think it's just a different mindset there. Being in Louisville, it's tough because it's so hard to convince people in Louisville that you're going somewhere, because usually people from Louisville, they move away. Like the most recent person that blew up from Louisville is Bryson Tiller, and he didn't necessarily move away, but he wasn't really moving on the local scene. He didn't have a huge local following before he got on. It was more like he kind of made some good business moves online with some singles, and that's kind of how he blew up. It wasn't really like he was grinding out, doing shows in the city and stuff. So I've been doing shows on the scene in Louisville for the past 2 years, slowly kind of building up a following, but eventually you gotta go to other cities and really build up a online presence and things like that. So on one side I see what you're saying, like, man, how does it like what's going on, why you can't? I know that at least I should be like a certain, maybe not at the top of the game or whatever, but like I know that I'm good enough to at least be making some type of progress in the industry off what I'm doing. At least that's what I'm hearing from people I can can trust, like you guys. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I feel like it makes more sense than it doesn't. You know what I mean? When I look at it from that sense, because I was dealing with the local label and stuff like that wanted to push what I'm doing and things like that. But there's a lot involved when it comes to the industry, man. And honestly, right now, I'm happy where I am now because I'm independent, but it's moving where I wanted to go. Yeah. And I'm working with a lot of other artists that I can produce, and sort of like carry on where I probably won't be able to go. You know what I'm saying? So it's just getting my music out the way I want to get it out, and marketing it to where people hear it. Because I feel like if people hear it, the more people that hear it, then the better. I feel like now it's just a process of getting people to hear it. So just getting it to different platforms and getting it out there. Because I didn't believe, man, for a while, living here, as you've lived here too, Bernie, it's just like after a while you stop believing, man. It's just like, it's probably like if y'all had talked to me last year, I would have been like, what? Y'all are nuts. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean? And it really, this past year, it just really took like a couple of people who I'm really convinced, I should I should trust what this person says to tell me like, hey man, you really, and I got back to believing, having that, like a lot of people don't understand how valuable it is when you're 18 years old and you believe you can make it in the industry. Like, when you get older, it's like that goes away, man. You go do a show and like there's no crowd, like you immediately want to go home. It's like like I'm done, man. Like I want to go play, Overwatch, man.
yeah, for real.
Like, fuck this, man. So
yeah, I mean, you said it though. Like you end up, life kind of catches up, and then you have to keep up with it because you have a kid, I have a kid, so we work full-time jobs, and like Bernie came and visited me. This was it's about last year, I think. What's the last year? Last year. And we recorded a few songs. We still have one or two more to do, and it's like he works like, I think Bernie is one of the hardest working people I know. He's always doing something, but it's to keep that. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm so happy because what you said inspired me too, is like, I want it to, even if it can't be me, I have other people that I'm helping to carry on that torch or carry on that legacy. And that's kind of what I felt when Bernie and I made those couple songs. It was like, okay, well, even if nobody hears them except the people that, are in our immediate area or whatever, like it was good to be artistic anyways, and it was good to create that music. And so regardless of what happens with it, I'm happy we got to do it, and that's awesome that, you get to live out that dream regardless of the status or whatever. But it's crazy because I went to that, when Bryson Tiller was in town a couple weeks ago, and
oh yeah,
it's crazy just how, he's just a kid from Louisville, man.
Yeah.
Because you're right, there's not a whole lot going on.
It can happen, man. And I know the guy that produced 60% of his album. I've been in studios with him and stuff. He's a humble guy too, and he's from somewhere southern Kentucky, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's from Lexington. I can't remember. I might be wrong there, but he's a humble dude too, man. His name is Ness, and these guys, they show me like, that's one of the things that made me believe. I was like, this can happen if you work hard, you make the right moves, and you be smart about your business and stuff like that. And I think that's one important thing too, is just that I'm more focused on being more organized and business oriented, because I feel like if I can become organized and handle all my business, like I'm 30 now, bro, and it's just like I'm just now really understanding BMI and the shit you should know before you even start. And it's just like, but I feel like if I can do that at least. And one guy who inspired me there is a rapper named Odyssey, who's an independent hip hop artist. But I'm like, if you're able to do that, I feel like if you can personally, and this goes back to like what we learn in church, man, like if you can, like get yourself in your own like personal, like motivation, or, handle yourself first at home, like you can do anything, man. So I'm like, if I can be motivated, if I can balance my checkbook, if I can withstand from like spending money on plugins and more gear instead of like, investing in some good marketing, then to me that's the answer. I'd rather look at that than look at like, because I was frustrated at first, like, man, like I'm making good music, why aren't people listening to it, man? Like, just press play on the SoundCloud. But it's just like it's like it's a misunderstanding of how it works, man. It's just like your family members and those people that live down the street are not fans,
No,
right.
They're fickle when it comes to listening to your stuff. That's for sure.
Right. It's like you want your cousin to to share your stuff on Facebook, and it's just like it's not how it works, bro. And I just having to understand that, man. Like, and that's the thing in Louisville. It's just like you have to get outside of Louisville, and then you'll see people really support. Like, everybody goes out to support Bryson Tiller. Like, when he was here, like, just an unknown artist, it was just like he couldn't really get a show like that. But it's like now he's famous and everybody's a fan, and it's just like, it's not that people are fake, or it's just more like that's just the environment, man. This is not LA, this is not Atlanta, so
Right.
I had never, I mean, honestly, like a week leading up to that show, my buddy's like, hey, you want to go to the Bryson Tiller show? I'm like, all right, whatever. But I mean, I'd be honest, like before he won all those Grammys or whatever, I really didn't know who he was, even living in Louisville. And then like leading up to the show, I knew who he was at that point, but I was like, I'm not really familiar a whole lot with his music. I know like he had that song on DJ Khaled's album, and he's had a couple songs with Rihanna and whatever. But like, so I knew those songs. But then when I really started listening to him, I'm like, okay, well, I think it was just an exposure thing, right? Like because he won awards, I listened to him, and I genuinely liked his music. So, going to that concert, I'm like, man, I should like know these words or these lyrics, or I'm gonna feel like I'm just here to, like I'm fake or whatever. But yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know where I was going.
No, man, I understand that, man. That's what I'm saying. It's just like if you marketing things like that has a lot to do with it more than people realize. It's like people will support if you market something very well. People will come out, and they'll support. They're looking for something to support. It's just that they don't want to. And I told my friend this one time, and he helped him see like what I was trying to say. I was like, the thing is, man, like. We think people don't want to see us succeed, but really they don't want to see us fail. And when you're on social media with the ugly ass artwork on your album and shit, nobody wants to see that. That shit is ugly. Like they don't want to see you fail. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh man, I don't want to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I don't want to take part in that. So it just looks like failure. And so that doesn't mean that they don't want to help or anything. It's just that they see you doing their things the wrong way, and it's just like, man, like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm just gonna log out for today. So I mean, that's
so true.
To me,
dude.
that helped me see things better, man. It's like okay, because you start getting better, man. You start feeling like, man, people don't want to, see me make it. They don't think I'm good, and you start doubting yourself, and I think it was good for me in a sense because it made me get better. It was like I had to go back to the drawing board in a lot of ways and like, man, what can I do better? So I just got obsessive, like. I don't really know how to do this, but I'm gonna learn how to do it. I'm not really a good mixing engineer, but I'm gonna learn how to do it. I'm gonna learn how to do this. I'm gonna learn how to do that. I'm just gonna get better and better, and and I feel like as an artist, I've gotten better, over the years from where I was, and just reading a lot of things, man. I'm just trying to understand people. I think that'll help you, anybody become better artists. And it just so happens, I'm a lot older now, so I probably, like I told my guy today, I was like, I'm going to be doing music for a few more years, but yeah, I'm looking to pass the torch, man. I'm looking to build something here and develop other artists who didn't have the opportunity. I have a lot of music gear and knowledge about music, and it's like I can pass that on to other people now.
Yeah, absolutely. I back to what you're saying about marketing, that is such a huge deal. I think especially in the hip-hop scene. I remember having conversations with Nick way back. Hold on a second, let me restart my... Okay. Yeah, we'd have conversations about the music industry, and I would just be like, I really don't know anything about the hip-hop industry because it's totally different than like being in a band. Like in being in a band, you kind of like build like a scene from where you're from, and people always come out because they just want to go crazy. But with hip hop, it's different. It's more of like an online thing. I feel like I work in the same town that Post Malone grew up in here in Texas.
Really?
Like I work
What town
in the
is
same
that?
city, and like everybody knows who he is. Yeah, it's Grapevine. It's a small ass
Grapevine
country town. But it's I remember when he first came out, like I was like, "Who's this Post? Why is everyone listening to this guy? He kind of sucks." Like I didn't like him at first because all I heard was
I got
White
used
Iverson.
to Post Malone. I love Post Malone now, man.
Oh, me too. Like it took me a minute because all I heard was White Iverson.
Man.
And I was like, "This."
Yeah, White Iverson.
Whack.
I was like, "What the fuck is this, man?" But yeah, I love Post Malone now, man.
Say again?
It's funny.
You skip.
I love Post Malone.
No, I was saying when White Iverson came out, I was like, man, this is trash, man. But it took me a minute to get it, man. I'm like, wow, this dude is actually pretty talented.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's such a good singer and a good musician.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't know if Bernie sent that to me. Somebody sent me a video of him. Oh no, you told me about it. He was singing a Bob Dylan song. Bernie told me that. Yeah, it's just wild.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, man, stuff like that, man, made me rethink things, man.
he basically made it through SoundCloud, and I guess it caught fire online. That's how he got famous. It's not like a rock group at all, which they build their success kind of. With hip-hop, it can happen overnight, or you just got to have the right marketing or something. So I just remember having conversations with Nick. I'm like, I have no idea what it takes.
Yeah, it is a lot of luck to it, but I think it is too, like, a lot of people don't realize. And the funny thing is, we should now, because it's out there now. The examples are there, like Post Malone. You know, you see Post Malone make it, and it's like you look at what he did. He did specific things marketing wise that people still don't want to do. It's like this worked for this guy and this guy, but people still like, nah, I'm gonna follow the old formula. I'm gonna go out here and do 30,000 shows.
Right.
And, as a rapper, it's just like, it's not gonna happen, man. You can do the bar every night, and that's one thing too. Is like I haven't done a lot of shows recently, and it's mainly because I just don't have time, man. It's like, you go do a show and you kill it. It could be like, I've had some guys come to me, tell me like, man, this is the best hip hop show I've ever seen. And it was like at a bar in Louisville, It's like, this is the best. And he was like, dead ass. He was like, this is the best hip hop show I've ever seen. And I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I didn't have a video of it or, or anything. It was just like, and it was just like, man, but after a while, you're just like, man, I could probably be in I wish I would have did that show in a bigger venue or on a Tiny Desk concert, or, you know what I mean, or whatever, because you feel like if somebody really feels that way about it, other people would too, probably.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What you need, man, is a guy like me with a camera, and we'll record anything and everything. Because that's what I do. I have some. Yeah, like I have buddies. Yeah, I'll vlog you. But I have buddies who are in bands and stuff. I pretty much just film their stuff. I edit it for them and I upload it for them and everything. But you need a video guy, dude.
Yeah. I got a dude that's definitely. Yeah, he's supposed to be doing my video now. So yeah. The thing is, I'm getting a lot of things coming together. It's just coming together now. I'm starting to figure it all out now, so it's like we're gonna make a push, man. We're gonna make a real push this year, and that's kind of what the space campaign is all about. It's just like trying to do something out of nowhere, man. Pretty much, like there's not a lot, and anybody would tell you here, man. Like in Louisville, there aren't a lot of opportunities for artists, and I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way to people that are listening from Louisville, but. A lot of artists I've heard this from on the scene, and a lot of people like Bryson have looked outside of the city because of that. It's just not a lot of opportunities, and that's not the shit on Louisville or anything or the area. That's just the bottom line, It hasn't, and it's tough when you live in a city where that's first off in a location that's not a huge destination spot, for people to move to or to visit. People come here for the derby and things like that, but that's a whole different crowd from hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not like a hot young city that people, that you have a lot of entrepreneurs or industry people kind of coming in and out of. So that's one aspect of it, and then we don't have like a major artist. Or a lot of major artists that have either positioned themselves here or created something here, created a music sound or scene or whatever industry here, and so that's the other thing about it. And so there's people here who are trying to do that now. I feel like a lot of stuff is happening now, but as with Bryson Tiller, but it's been in the past year or two.
Yeah, I think too. Like there's a lot of things happening in Louisville that are also kind of hurting the. And I've lived in Louisville now 6 years, and I feel like Louisville is their own worst enemy. I mean, this is coming from somebody that grew up in Ohio, and I'm a big Ohio State Buckeyes fan. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for a long time, and to see that city and where they came from. And in terms of like the, I don't know about the hip hop culture, but I know like the band culture, the rock and roll culture. I know a ton of bands that have come out of Columbus, Ohio, in that area, or Dayton, Ohio area. and like 21 Pilots, I know, is from Dayton, Ohio. You know, we like bands that we listen to, Reliant K. There's a lot of bands that are like from that Ohio area and Columbus area, but like Louisville, I think sometimes is their own worst enemy with some of the decisions they make, and it kind of depresses me a little bit because I actually do really like this city. I've lived here now 6 years, and this city is great. There's a lot of potential, but I agree with you 100%. Like, there's not a lot of opportunities. There's not really a music scene at all ever. You know, there's even the bands I listen to rarely come through Louisville. You got to go to Cincinnati, you got to go to Nashville, Indianapolis. Very rarely do they, come through Louisville, and that's even in the rock and roll, or like hardcore scene music, and that I still listen to.
Yeah, man, and it's weird, man, because it's like if you look at Louisville compared to Cincinnati, I mean, it should be pretty equal, in my opinion. I don't really see why Cincinnati should have that much more of an advantage.
I agree. Yeah.
But so a lot of it doesn't make much sense. I mean, I'm definitely open, all ears to anybody who can explain it. But that's just the reality, though, man. So yeah.
Well, I think things are going to change. I think because of all this stuff going on with the basketball team and the organization, I think you'll see there'll be a lot of ripples throughout the entire city, not just from a sports standpoint, but like how businesses make decisions, and I don't know, man. I'm kind of nervous about it, but just from an economic standpoint, like
so they're doing away with I don't follow the college sports too much. I didn't know. I heard about the scandal and everything. Are they like taking? Is the season getting canceled or something?
No, they haven't really announced that yet. They have a little bit of time still to figure that out, but I mean, I think. At worst case scenario, they don't play basketball at all. Like they don't play any games. And you think about that's worst case scenario. But you think about from an economic standpoint, I don't follow college basketball a whole lot. But living in Louisville, that's all we hear about. However many games they play, like think about all the money, all the revenue that they lose out on, like, and then. Just to how that ripples throughout the city. But, yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, they don't play any games. Best case scenario, they probably aren't eligible for any type of postseason like championship, which they already I mean, the reason why I think that they'll probably not play any games is because it wasn't even like a year ago or 2 years ago that they were in trouble and they were ineligible for the postseason. So it's like now this is technically strike two, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I don't follow it a whole lot either. I have a lot of friends that are Louisville fans, and I think about it just from an economic standpoint, how it affects the city. But
yeah, man, I think it definitely will, man.
It could also create a lot of opportunity too, because I mean, there's people are going to spend their money somewhere. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely I see a lot of people going crazy about it. I'm like, man, I haven't gotten too much in the UK and Louisville basketball culture, but I mean, I love basketball more than the NBA, but at the same time it's like, yeah, I know a lot of people here, man, are kind of going crazy over it, man. It is pretty nuts. But yeah.
Well, keeping to sports, a couple weeks ago we were talking about the whole kneeling issue or whatever it is at the NFL. I didn't know if you had an opinion on that, because I know you've been kind of vocal on social issues, like in the past. When you're on my radar before you changed your name, and then you disappeared. But
we were going to talk about it, but then we had that unfortunate shooting in Las Vegas, so we talked about that a little bit. But I'm definitely still like interested and want to kind of dive into that a little bit tonight and kind of see what your thoughts are.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, man. I definitely feel like the kneeling, man, is definitely a good protest in the sense of if you're gonna protest, I think this is the way to do it. It's like people get criticized for looting and destroying property. It's like a peaceful protest. I think this is the protest they were asking for. It was like like a protest like MLK, and it's like this is kind of how MLK would protest. He wouldn't a nonviolent protest. So I feel like regardless if people agree with the reasoning for it or not, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, I think America is a great country, and it definitely deserves. I think the ideals, and I've said this on social media, I feel like the ideals of America are what we should celebrate and respect. The ideals of America, not necessarily America itself, but what it stands for. Like, justice, freedom, liberty, love, whatever. The ideals that America stands, those are the things that we. So if any time America strays away, those ideals are put in question. America's put in question about when it comes to those ideals. I think that's what America should be about. We should be allowed to say, hey man, I don't think America is living up to what it says it's supposed to be living up to. And so people that blindly support the flag outside of that, like, that's kind of like religious, like you're gonna blindly support America no matter what with no question. It's because of this many people died for it, and it's just like, I don't know, man. That just sounds a little spooky, man. It sounds kind of cultish.
I like the way you put it. If there's a difference between, go ahead.
The
Nate.
definition of a protest is it's not so everybody agrees with you, right? Like, then it wouldn't be a protest if, like, Bernie's the only one that disagrees with you. So, I mean, I agree with you. Like, there's a couple of things that are happening right now that I was looking into, like, preparing for this, and, like, I think people are missing the point. Like, people, there's, people on both sides obviously have opinions, but, like, people are, like, thinking that this is just blatant disrespect to the military and to our veterans, and, like, I want to hear your opinion on that, but, like, I think we're ultimately missing whether Colin Kaepernick meant this the very first time he did it or not. Like, I think now it's evolved into so much more, into something so different. But, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think military people deserve respect, man, and anybody that disrespects, somebody who dies for the country, or sacrifices their life, for the country, regardless of whether it's, during a campaign or any type of war act America has done that may not be completely morally justified. I still think that like, people who serve and sacrifice their bodies, for the benefit of the safety of America at large, they deserve respect. So I think people are justified in feeling like, hey, if they feel like people are disrespecting people who serve in the military, yeah, that's something to be upset about. But like you said, it's a misunderstanding. It's like they're not protesting the military or protesting, they're not saying that these people died in vain or whatever they think they're protesting. But I think that's just the argument that people, and I don't think it's fair to say, like, if somebody's protesting America, to say that automatically means that they're protesting, or disrespecting servicemen. It's just like,
right.
It's like, how can you jump to that conclusion, man? When the funny thing is, the serviceman is the one that pretty much got Colin Kaepernick to start the protest. It was I think a retired Army or somebody that served in the Army or the service. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah, I definitely think the troubling thing about it is, and this is one thing too, man, I want to say, a lot of, like, my change too had to do with when I left, or when Ferguson happened, and that's when kind of a lot of things started. And now I was changing a lot at that time too, and so I got really sort of political with a lot of things because I was just angry. I was like, man, this is racist. That's racist. And it's like you start seeing all kinds of stuff. It's like when somebody who used to be a Christian and they become a diehard atheist. It's like everything is just like anything Christian is just like wrong and evil, and like, so it's just like it's like everything was racist at that time, and you're just angry because it's like you feel like you were in a lie, and so that's why I was at that time. But now it's like I feel like I'm being more balanced because of I've seen, I think Fox News and stuff exaggerates this both sides kind of thing. I don't think I've seen, of course I'm biased, but I don't think I've seen like an equal to the neo-Nazis.
Right.
But I feel like there are people who, I think what they should say is that there are people on the left who are wrong about a lot of things. I don't think they're as violent or as, it looks like can y'all hear me?
You broke off.
I don't know, for some reason my screen jacked up. But I think there's a lot of people on the left who are wrong about a lot of things, or very fanatical when it comes to their beliefs. And so they go off spewing a bunch of stuff that is like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, man. It's like, but it's just like, they're justified because they feel like they have this moral justification for it. And so it's just like they can just, because they draw one conclusion, they can jump to a bunch of other conclusions. And so it's like, I've been trying to come back a little bit more and try to look at each situation as it comes in, versus like, there's people who kind of have this sort of like default stance regardless of whatever issue it is, and like, oh, I'm jumping to this side, I'm jumping in. So with the whole football thing, there are things happening on both sides that I think are silly, but overall I stand with Kaepernick in the sense I like the way he's doing this protest. I think it's very respectable. I don't agree with like everything that he says or stands for or supports, but I definitely agree with his way of protesting.
Yeah, I think what people need to understand is that ultimately both sides are going to use whatever you do to fit their political agenda, whatever it may be. So if I kneel and protest, then the right is going to say that I hate America and that I hate veterans that walk down the street, and then I just burn flags in my spare time. But then like the left is going to say they're just going to glorify everything that I do no matter what I do. And or if I go out there and I dress up like a neo-Nazi, then the left is going to say that I'm a monster. And like, regardless of how we feel about either side, like I disagree with plenty that is happening in America right now. It's like last week we talked about the gun violence in America, and like why does it take so long for us to even have conversations? Like, we're a very reactive country. We react to things. We're not proactive. We don't like try to prevent anything, I don't think, but it's because it's all a political agenda. But I think at the end of the day, like, I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that if we go out and we just try to learn from our past, like, we've come a long way since slavery, but I promise you we have so much further to go. And if we don't continue to have conversations that like Colin Kaepernick is having right now, or like those silent protests or whatever, or even like verbal protests, like, that's okay too. Like, if we don't have those every day, and I was watching a video today, they're like, we have to continue to talk about it every day and continue to challenge people's thoughts and continue to, like, in a nonviolent way, like, have these conversations. Then we'll never grow as a nation, and we'll continue to be the left and the right, and we'll never be the middle. We'll always be left or right. So, like, dude, I mean, I'm super. Like, what kind of disappoints me is that now the NFL, all the owners are getting together and they're trying to vote on whether they want to force their players to stand for the that's something that came out today, to stand for the anthem or whatever. So, unfortunately, like, that may be something, I get it, like, we're here to watch football, but also, like, that's one of the largest stages in the world. Mm-hmm. And
that's their platform, yeah, for sure. And there he's back. Thought you were gone for a second.
Yeah. My bad. I don't. Yeah, you were going in and out, but yeah, man, I agree with you, man. I feel like it's definitely, we're at a place where people need to listen more, and that's part with me, because I feel like, because I use this example a lot. I say, man, I'm a man. I grew up a man, and to hear a lot of feminist thoughts and things like that definitely challenged me, so I'm like, the first time I heard a feminist, I was like, yo, fuck this, like, this is some bullshit. I'm like, this, all men are trash, like, this is, this is sexist, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, just so I feel like that helped me to see that's how a lot of white people feel when we start bringing up racism and things like that. So I'm like, man, maybe I need to hear these feminists out more, and it helped me understand more about feminism. I don't agree 100% with a lot of that, especially a lot of the far stuff. That's like, I don't agree with a lot of it. I still think, there needs to be a lot discussed when it comes to issues of gender and, things like that we need to have sensible discussions about. And so the same when it comes to racism, I feel like a lot of times because people reject things that they feel like don't benefit them or hurt their feelings or whatever, and it's just like that's with everybody. And so what's happening now is just this identity politics going on where everybody just kind of falls into whatever they feel more comfortable with. And it's ugly because it's like a lot of the left is pushing that and it doesn't work for them. It's just like when you start attacking somebody based on their identity, that's what they're going to fall back on. And who do you think that's going to benefit? The people who already have the power. So you're hurting yourself. So I feel like we need to have, because earlier on I felt like, there was this idea going around. I wouldn't say idea, but the culture was more like, yeah, we love Martin Luther King, but he was a little too passive. But now as I mature, it's like I understand why Martin Luther King, advocated for more respectability politics, if you will. And it's mainly because if you're going to point at somebody's morality, you can't and judge them by that or hold them to a morality. You have to hold yourself to that same level of morality, and I feel like the left doesn't want to do that a lot of times. It's like they want to say, these people failed morally, but then, we can behave however we want to behave, or we can, basically be assholes. And it's just that's just not going to work, man. You can't call people all kinds of names and then say, you need to be an angel to me. It's just like, that's just not going to work, man. You have to meet people halfway and show some humility. So I think it's definitely on us if we're going to be the people that are going to call people out morally. Then you have to set a moral standard,
Morally, then you have to set a moral standard,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree.
Totally agree too. Yeah, that's.
It seems to me like that's one of the easiest conversations, but it's so hard. It's so hard, and I don't understand it. Like, I hope, like, my son's 5, and I'm gonna raise him to the best of my ability, and I hope their generation gets it better than ours. But I just don't get it. I don't understand that, but. And that's not me trying to like put myself on a pedestal. It's difficult for me to walk down the street or watch the news and see the stuff in like Charlottesville and see all the hate and it's difficult for me to understand that because, and that's not like, I have plenty of problems. I have plenty of flaws, but such a simple conversation as like, treating each other with respect and kindness and just like being open to a disagreement. Like somebody may disagree with you doesn't mean they're garbage, doesn't mean they're less than you. It just means that, hey, we may not agree on everything. But I don't know, man. Like I honestly think like the government wants it that way. This is such a conspiracy theory, but like
nah, man, tell it, man, preach.
They want like people told me that for so long. I'm like, no, man, that's the government. They got our best interest in mind, like blah blah blah. But I'm like, you watch Fox, you're gonna hear one side of the story. You watch another network, you're gonna hear the polar opposite of that story.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do I find the middle? And is there a middle? And do they want us to hear a middle? Because if you put two human beings in a room and just conversations, and I just feel like more can be accomplished. But when we make decisions based off of the Facebook news that we see and just the headlines, then yeah, like if I just see the stuff about just the headlines about the stuff happening in Las Vegas, like I would never know the truth because every story I read was different, and every story I read was trying to a different agenda and just a different angle of me and I was just trying to be mad, but I don't know.
Nah, man, that's the truth, man. I feel like it's definitely more going on than we probably would ever know, man. And I was reading an article the other day about the Russians social engineering, putting things on Facebook to make people feel a certain way in Ferguson, and that's when you look back at that situation, is like that's when a lot of this blew up, So it's like, man, like, did Russia just socially engineer like the past 4 years of the country?
Yeah.
It's just like,
God.
God damn. So I mean, it really is crazy when you think about it, man. It's like, it's not. So we really have to be careful before we like get too angry and upset about certain things, and really try to love people, man. Because I feel like we're at a really crazy point, man, in our history, man. We really got to start being more mature. Like, I feel like the people who really are mature and thinkers have to really, step up, man, and really, challenge themselves to, humble themselves in a lot of ways, man. Because if not, man, if this stuff keeps going on, I mean, it really is scary. And like you say, you got kids, man. I got a kid too, man. I'm thinking like we're really close to nuclear war. We're close to like civil war. We're close to, a lot of different things, man. And we got Donald Trump as the president. It's just like, this is not a time right now for jumping to conclusions. We need people that are really we need some real solid thinkers, man, and people, thinking about other people. Like, what is it about humanity that deserves to live on, man? We really got to tap into that, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Bernie.
No, I'm enjoying listening to both of you guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
Bernie's the preacher.
No, I think, man, I just.
I'm the reason why I'm not saying anything, because I'm not into politics whatsoever, so I really don't have an opinion in a sense. Like, I try to stay in the middle as possible. But what y'all are saying makes sense to me. So yeah, love is a big deal, and everyone should love each other. That's simple. It's easy, and that's where I kind of stand. You know what I mean on it.
Yeah, I think like you take politics all the way out of it, and like remove that word, and remove government, and remove all of that. Like it's so hard to walk down the street and just hate everybody that you see. Like, it's so emotionally difficult, and
man.
I'll be hanging out with some people that are like, this person's ugly, that person's fat, I'm going to be prejudiced to this person because of the color of their skin or because of the whatever. And if we aren't constantly like confronting those people or challenging their beliefs, not in a negative way, not saying, hey, you're garbage for having those beliefs because then I'm no better than them, but like, it was the same thing, it's the same. We talk about race, we talk about gender equality, you talk about the LGBTQ community out there. Like, people, there's so much, like, so many things to worry about. North Korea potentially nuking or trying to nuke our country, civil war, like you said, like, and yet we can't even figure out how to speak to one another. We haven't even figured that out, and yet we want to mobilize and maybe prevent nuclear war or Civil War II, like, and then while all that's going on, you got almost 600 people shot, and now everybody wants to go out and buy a gun. Those same people that can't have conversations with the person next to them because of the things that they're saying, maybe they don't agree with, and instead of saying, hey, I don't agree with you, I'm just going to shoot you. I now have a gun that I just bought, so I'm going to shoot you because that's how I can be effective. And like, that's a problem to me. I don't know, man.
It's sad, man, and I think they still haven't found a real motive for the killer, man. Stephen Paddock, and and I don't want to jump to my conspiracy. I guess we all get one tonight, but I feel like with him, man, Stephen Paddock, man, the dude that shot all those people, man. I just think we live in a world now where you have. And I guess to go back to talk about religion and church and things like that, you have people who are jumping into like heavy nihilism, who are jumping into sort of this absurdist viewpoint of things, and it's just like, killing a lot of people and killing yourself just sounds like a good idea to a lot of people. You know, he just had the balls to do it, but it's just like that's kind of where we're going when we kind of get, and you know, just to go back to like I said, just to bring up church and religion and things like that. I feel like because we grew up, we had like one side of the extreme of things, so it kind of like, and I feel like a lot of people did, and it just kind of pushes you to like the other side some way. It's just like, but then I think you need a balance, man. You still have to have, I feel like, you know, we all feel that something out there, you know, God or, you know, Jesus, you know, we all feel that, you know, it's just like we all want to respond to that. That thing is something that connects everybody to each other. And we don't, you know, while we're figuring that out and things like that, I feel like there's another side that wants to like, that is very anti-human, you know, that's very, you know, that nihilist sort of culture coming up now. You see it on the internet everywhere. And that's what kind of scares me a lot. And I feel like a lot of that is behind a lot of the racism that we see continuing, like this new neo-Nazi sort of tradition. You have a lot of these people that are just, you know, they're falling back on this sort of, I don't know what it is, man. It's really like a hedonism, you know, where it's just like everybody is just doing what feels good to them, and you know, nobody's denying themselves. And I think, and so that's, you know, right now I'm in a place now where it's just like I'm reading, because I feel like because of, like I said, because of how we were raised in church and religion, it's just like you get to a point where it's just like you kind of angry, and so you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I definitely feel like there's a lot of good things, man. A lot of great principles. Like, a book does not last for centuries, you know, and that goes for a lot of religions, you know. It's just like these books don't last for centuries unless they work for people, you know, unless something in them, they have some power, you know. And that's not for me to get mystical and say like it's magic or whatever, but it's just like when you throw a lot of the culture now is wanting to throw away a lot of the good things about history. So, you know, just talking about the country, there's a lot of people who say F America sucks, it was all racism, it was all this, and it's just like, no, it's not, man. It's like, it wasn't all racism. Like, slaves may have, you know, laid the first brick of the White House, so to speak, but it doesn't mean that the country needs to be thrown away. You know, it doesn't mean that the country, all of the country's history, entire history is just marred by racism or marred by whatever, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of, you know, good that went into it. The ideals behind America, the ideals behind a lot of the structure of America, even the religious aspects of it, are what got us here today. Is the reason why we have the progress. A lot of reason why we have the progress, not in spite of it, but it has a lot to do with a lot of the progress Christianity was used by, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King and other people.
Yeah.
So people need to be careful, you know, and that's one of the things too. Like for myself, it's like you got to be careful, you know, you got to be more nuanced. And as a guy, I've been really, he's a Christian. Well, he says he's a Christian. He has kind of weird, funky beliefs, but his name is man, his last name is Peterson. I can't think of his first name right now, but he's a really brilliant dude, man, from Canada. But he basically, man, is really, he's a lot more nuanced in his approach. I don't think he would call himself he criticizes a lot of the leftist thinking, you know.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember his first name either.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, that's his name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a brilliant dude, man. But he challenges a lot of the left. I think he had a video where he was just like, somebody asked him about, is it wrong to say white privilege? And he said, you know, like, he just basically came out and was like, white privilege is a terrible thing to say. And I was just like, whoa, like, this is something that I totally subscribe to. What do you mean? So I watched the video, but he really explained it in a way that was like, wow, you know, like, yeah, there is another side to this. There's another angle to everything, you know. And I feel like everybody could benefit from being challenged on their views, you know, and challenged on. Otherwise, you know, anybody could be swept up by anything that makes them feel, you know, vindicated or makes you feel, you know,
Righteous.
you're righteous, you know.
I think a lot of that's being sheltered too. Like you said, you've been reading a lot. I've been watching a lot. I've been listening to a lot of different types of people, because normally the people that I see that have the most hate are the people that don't have as many opportunities to, I guess, integrate themselves with different types of people. So, you know, they get in a comfort zone of hate or whatever, like whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be hate, but they get in this comfort zone. So they're like, well, I never did that before, so I don't like it. I've never had this conversation before, so I'm just not going to have it. But, you know, you reading, watching movies, watching videos that challenge, like, white privilege, like, I totally subscribe to that, right? Before, and now maybe I think of it differently, whatever, insert whatever stance in, you know, so, but, yeah.
You know, initially for me, you know, and it's funny to go back to y'all, but it was just like that really was outside of what, you know, we would do. Just like go to it, because y'all were in like heavy hard rock, you know, venues and stuff, and it was just like, to us, it was like, oh, this is the devil's music, you know. Before it was like, we going to places where they got the black eyes and, you know, everybody's got tattoos and long hair and stuff. It was just like, you got a bunch of southern black dudes that, you know, grew up Pentecostal. It was just like, that's different, you know. But it's like being around that culture at first, and then, you know, music got us into other cultures. We went to another church where they were more, you know, liberal with things, and, you know, it just showed us like there are other people out here. And I think when you're confronted with the reality that there are other people out here who were raised differently from you, who think differently from you, who respond to things differently from you, it really does force you to think. And I think that's one of the main. I think if everybody was forced to live a year with the person that was least like them, like, you'd be forced to change. Like, you know, you'd be forced to like look at things differently. You might not change exactly how you feel, but you'll be forced to have some empathy, you know. And
you'll learn something.
You'll learn, man. And I feel like that's all it takes. Like, people stay in their corners with the people that are like them, and
and
it's just like you don't. But me, it's just, I've been in a situation. I just had a really unique situation where I was forced to be around people that would not like me, you know. Even when I moved here to Jeff, you know, it was like I was around a lot of people that were different, and I started doing music and going to other churches and things like that, and it's just like I was constantly sort of being confronted with different realities, man. And it's just like you become friends with somebody who has a different reality from you. If you're not real about what you believe, or if you're not, what you believe is not on a strong foundation, if you're not sure, then you're gonna change, you know. You eventually, it's gonna, because you're being challenged. And so it's like, if it's not anything concrete, then it's gonna come apart. And I feel like for me, it was like I was in church because I just felt like, man, this is where I need to be. You know, I've dedicated my entire life. I was a Bible quizzer at 12. You know, I was
oh wow,
Bible quiz champion. You know, so it's like, I was every summer where everybody. I remember one time I was invited. There's a guy at our church. His brother was Charlie Ward that played for the Knicks, and he had bought me. He got me a free like trip to a Nike basketball camp. All the stars are going to be there and everything, but it was during youth convention, and I was 13, and I turned it down and went to youth convention, man.
Oh,
that's how dedicated.
Man,
That's how dedicated I was to like the Bible, man. Like I was, it was all I really knew, man. It's outside of the Bible. It was just like, you know, I got the hood that I grew up in. It was just like, man, like church was the way out, man. It's like church was the way out of here. So I stayed in church, and then when I finally got to a place where, you know, we weren't like struggling and things like that, I had time to think really about a lot of things. And a lot of people never get that time. A lot of people never get a time to sit down and think. It's just like their life is just constant like struggle or turmoil or whatever, and they never get a chance to really sit down and be like, man, what am I doing?
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think next time we do a podcast with you, we can talk more about like the religious aspects and how we all kind of got out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
I think that'd be a good conversation as well. But
if people wanted to listen to your awesomeness,
absolutely,
your music, how would they find it?
Oh man.
Yeah, flattered. Man, right now you can go to. I have a website, www.thespacecampaign.com. My music is on there, so you can go there. But it's also on. If you go look up Yons on any platform, iTunes.
Yeah. I searched Yons on Google and it took me to SoundCloud. Yons music or something. I forget what I typed, but it takes you there for sure. I was going to ask you a couple more questions before we sign off here, but I was going to ask you exactly what the space campaign really what it is, because I remember seeing all the hashtags back a year or two ago. I mean, like I was just wondering what the meaning of space is that you're trying to convey. Like I guess in a nutshell, real quick.
It's just like, what does space mean, man? When you look at space, what's out there, man? You don't really know, and that's kind of like. For me, that's what space is, man. It's just like it's just that dream you have, man. Like that you can do, whatever, man. Like life is full of possibilities, man. And let's get out. Let's make things happen. Let's do something crazy, man. There's problems we have, man. We can get through them. It's kind of like a general sort of thing, man. I just always kind of been about space. Like even going back to the Christian rap days, Yons D, that's a space name, and that's just kind of been my theme, like as an artist. And so it was a natural sort of progression,
Sweet. And I had one last question. I wrote it down on the sheet here. It said, any chances for a Cataract's Fall collaboration?
It just takes a Gmail, an email, man. Just send me a track, man, or whatever, man.
I will say,
send y'all something, man.
I will say, because we recorded about 4 or 5 songs for a new EP, just to do it for shits and giggles. And we're also doing a documentary about the band, like a short one. But there's a track on there where it just kind of shifts into this Kanye West type of like beat, and Colton like he spits like some like Post Malone type shit. But yeah, and I had you in mind. I was like, man, I wonder if he would be willing to just jump on here and do something.
I'm willing to.
Yeah, send it to him.
Man, just send me that, man. You already know, bro. Man, there's any way I can be in that documentary too, man. I love to give my 2 cents, man, about Orlando, man.
Dude, all right, yeah, absolutely. I will. I'll talk to you more about that, because like
that's actually a good idea.
Cause
to like get people that knew us, like because it's really we just have us talking.
Right. I want to have I think I have my dad on there, all the bandmates.
Yeah.
It'd be good to get you. Like I can like Skype you again just to get an interview.
Yeah, that'd be dope, man. Sure. I'm down.
Heck yeah, dude. That's dope. I like this. All right, but I guess we can stop our recordings now. We're just stopping our recording. All right, peace out, people.